Hey, I'm just gonna blitz you a couple things because not much has changed since I last talked to this camera. First off, I'm still working on UMD transferring, so got accepted into UMD, taking the offer. Really excited. Unfortunately, though, I do not have on-campus housing, so I have to look for off-campus housing. So that's gonna be a whole thing, and I will be honest, it does scare me in the sense that it does somewhat affect the possibility of me going to UMD in the sense that if I can't find off-campus housing, it becomes a trickier situation. So that's why I'm still holding this pit thing um, tightly. It's weird because like I want to, I really love Pitt. It's still a choice between the two, but ultimately I've decided on UMD. But what I'm scared of is in some future that UMD doesn't have housing or off-campus housing is too expensive and all that, and then I can't do it. And then I go back to Pitt. But I already like said, hey, I'm leaving. So I dropped all the stuff I was doing at Pitt. So I just go back. It's a lose-lose situation, I think. And that's why I think I've been holding a bit on telling people the appropriate parties that I'm leaving, because that does affect situations if I do have to come back. Which I do think is kind of a sucky thing to do because I think it's more appropriate to tell them at a certain time because the more I hold off on telling them, the more they're impacted by my leaving in a certain time frame. So I'm hoping to balance that out so it's not too sucky of a time to leave. And there was a fly who just flew past me for some reason. Also, I'm just going to go on a side tangent. I wasn't meaning to do that work. I was staying at home since I just got back from Vegas at like 5 a.m. I was staying at home, and then I was in a meeting, and then this wasp was literally trying to break through my window. Like this dude was going through every possible crevice. Now, first I'm like, okay, he's gonna leave eventually. He did leave. Then he came back like a couple minutes later and started looking for more crevices or more gaps in the window to come down. I was so scared. I don't know why he's interested in my room for some reason, but that was really annoying. I dislike wasps. I dislike bugs. I don't care for them. I don't think we should care for them, and except for this that they help us pollinate some stuff here and there. But overall, I do not like bugs. Besides spiders that stay in the corner for their whole lives are cool. I think that's the only I guess it's not even a bug or an insect. I remember what the relationship was. But that was a side tangent. So going back to other stuff. So UMD housing is a bit of an issue there. Um, Besides that though, something really cool is Rio, the retrieval augmented generation agent bot that I made for Student Government Board that I was hoping to do more with in the coming months. Will be open sourced. I think I'm just going to release it out there. I don't think it's too impressive technically. I feel like it's a very standard RAG bot agent. I do think I would love to see more people build on it and just it's not okay. Here's how I'll phrase it in terms of the technical aspect of it, I don't think it's some novel solution. However, in the terms of the approach and its context, I think that's where the novelty comes in that it's being used for student government. I would really love to see more technology be built for student governments and just schools in general. I think there's also a case and argument to be made that seeing clubs and organizations like student government or student board, whatever you want to call it, have their own independent tools does hold merit, especially in times when there's a conflict of interest between an administration and a student government board for various reasons. Just to give a hypothetical right now, not that this is happening, but to give a hypothetical, let's say like under the Trump administration, there's certain stuff the school wants to do, certain services or publications or just terms or pages that they want to pull back, right, for reasons that they have, right? Those services or those information can still be useful to a school. So maybe having students, governments with their own websites could have merit in that case. Was like, okay, the school technically can't have this, but a student government can have this website. So it's a win-win solution where the school gets to save its back or whatever the term is, and then the information is still there that people who rely on it or who just makes them comfortable. I think comfort is something that's very underrated, overlooked sometimes. I think a lot of when people are uncomfortable or scared, I guess that's a better term. When people are scared, they're very irrational. I think that's something where you can say, okay, this isn't really important. Like it makes no difference if it's called DEI or IED or whatever you want to call it. But I do think there's a sense of having that foundation of trust within a body of students, just knowing that you do care for them. These services are there, not just like something that's always a matter of like, okay, what if we take it now, or what if we take it tomorrow, or what if we take it the next week? I think that's how I try and approach it. 'Cause I know sometimes for me, I'm always thinking like, okay, like for instance, for University of Pittsburgh, we had the Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. I hated how it was EDI and not DI, but besides that, we changed it to institutional engagement and well-being. And in my head, it still covers the same services. It still does the same things. There is some restructuring. I don't know these quotations, but there's some restructuring here and there. But ultimately, it's still the same thing. It's really just a matter of appeasing people who are very offended by DEI. I think that's stupid in general. But then my thing is like, okay, is this a mountain or hill that's worth dying on? I think an approach I have to or something I always have to factor in is that these are stuff that are important to people, because if we're willing to change the name, what else are we willing to change? Because think about it, why change a name that 99% of people are okay with? So without logic, you can kind of follow through and say, okay, if they're willing to change the name, there's probably some other stuff that could go down that is not in the interest of certain people. Um, but yeah, I think it's interesting to see. But back to what I was saying, the novelty of Rio the Ragbot is just that I want to see more student governments and more students build more tools and technology for their schools, their community. I even think that's a leaving the school space or educational space for a second. I do think that's something I would love to see more, is technology be kind of brought down to the level of communities. It doesn't have to be something that has to scale globally or become $1 billion industry or startup or company. It could just be something that maybe 25 people in your community use. I think that's something I would love to see more, because I do think that does have merit. I can't fully explain, but I suspect, like I have, I have the feeling and vibe that it does serve a purpose to just have technology at that level. I think with the abstraction of coding we're seeing with AI, that's something we're becoming closer and closer to. Software is becoming much more accessible in terms of the building of it. So I know, I think it was Hugging Face or Lovable, they had something where they're teaching kids how to like vibe code. Vibe code has to die as a term, I think. Like, I think vibe code has a very negative connotation, but they're teaching kids how to vibe code websites or apps. And once kids can do that, it's like, okay, I have this very specific problem, right? Instead of trying to find an app and adjusting myself to the app to solve my problem, I'm just going to create my solution right now. And once people are able to do that more and more, I do think we're going to see I don't know, I think a renaissance for software and technology. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what people build out of it. I think we're very early on in the AI integration into society. I think we're seeing like the very, we're getting like teasers here and there, but I don't think we've even seen like how society is going to be in 15 years. I think it's going to be completely different. I guess that's just how it's always been. But I feel like everyone I feel like we as people, or maybe I should speak to myself a couple months ago, I think I had a concrete idea of how AI was going to affect society and how it's going to look like in 10 to 15 years. But now I look at it, I genuinely don't know, but I'm much more excited to see how people use it. Because the most I think a lot of the revolutionary aspects of AI are not going to be discovered in the lab or by some researcher, by some billion-dollar company, but it's going to be discovered by some kid who wants to break some rule in school to do something, right? I think that's when you're going to start seeing once people become much more used to and like using AI, that's when you can scale innovation. Because once you have, it's very easy. It's innovation in a room of, let's say you have 10 geniuses, 10 experts, is much, I think, harder to find versus you have 1 billion average people with a couple experts, a couple like million experts in between that billions of people. I think that's when you can scale the innovation of AI. So that's why I'm really excited to see more people use it, because as it gets as it becomes increasingly adopted, you can see the innovation increase. So that's gonna be a sight to really behold. But yeah, that's just where I am at right now. Besides that, though, I have nothing else to say. So have a great day.